little bit of the old time travel. You know how it is.
I mean, Doctor Who, indeed.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
thank you very much. Yeah, I thought that. I just went on holiday recently. I was like, oh, there's something that's got to be done here. Got to film something. So I just sort of got that in the bag and yeah, tried to figure out how to edit it all afterwards.
And you made it look great. That's the main thing.
Ah,
It
thank
looked
you. Thank you.
phenomenal. So now, this is Track Back, the Ultimate Influencers podcast, and you are Capital Zone. So the first question I want to ask you now is, as a Capital presenter, what makes Capital so much better than Radio One? Because I'm on the Capital side of things.
Good.
Imagine there's a war between all of Capital and Radio One. I would be on the Capital side because it's so much entertaining.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's all just very sort of fast moving as well. I think I'm sure we're going to come to TikTok later on,
Yeah,
but
no,
like it's sort of like, you get through it. I think the sort of it's like quite quick links. It's all very to the point, if you know what I mean. It's sort of like you say what you got to say, you move on, you're into the songs, you're out of the songs, and you sort of like it's always sort of moving forward really. And obviously, I mean, Capital is great for the balls, right? You've got the
yeah,
Jingle Bell Ball, which has just been
the
announced.
summertime ball.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
buzzing
beat
for it.
it.
It's a great one. So I mean, this year, yeah, Jingle Bell Ball sold out so quickly. It was in within an hour. I think it was within like 40 minutes. So they've got some big names on there this year. They've got like Bieber and Coldplay, and yeah, I'm excited to get back to it all.
I mean, how is it that you're working what's it like working in these events where you're with these big time artists? Do you ever think that you would be doing this?
You know what? Never. It's so surreal sometimes, especially like at these big events. I remember last year sort of being backstage at the O2, like the Jingle Bell Ball, um, and just sort of like walking down the corridor and you think, hang on, that's Harry Styles. He smells great. And it's just that's one thing. I mean, that's one thing to take away from these celebrities. They just smell so good, and it's just like there's some money coming down this corridor
You
right
just
now.
think, where did he get that aftershave from?
Yeah, I know. It's never one
What's
that
the
you smelled
secret?
before. It must be that. So I guess that's it. The key to success is smell great. That's what I've got from it anyway.
Damn, I need to remember that. I need to remember that.
Get it in.
So I mean, how did you first get into radio now? What was the inspiration getting into radio? Do you always have an interest in it when you were growing up? Was it something that I always want to get on those decks, or was it that interest in music? Because a lot of radio presenters, they start off DJs, don't they? They have that interest in music. So was that the
Sort
sort
of.
of career path that you went on?
It's a little bit of a weird one because I mean it's always really been presenting. Like growing up, I mean acting and just sort of like performing in general has always been like my only passion really. So when I was in college, I was doing acting, just did like a 2-year course there,
Yeah.
and then that's sort of when I discovered like yeah, I really want to get into presenting now, and was just sort of trying to figure out the best route in really. And then I did a season abroad. I worked in Mallorca for a little bit. I was doing like the evening entertainment for like a
Oh,
first choice hotel
yeah,
thing.
I've heard of those things. They are quite good though for presenters that are trying to start out, aren't they?
Really good. Yeah, really good. So, I mean, I was 18 at the time and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So it was about 7 months of doing that. I think that was sort of like the best training really, because it was working obviously in a live environment. You're on stage, sort of working with sort of like doing the adult stuff and then like the kids entertainment as well, which is always like I think a good starting block. I mean, obviously children's TV is always a great way into any type
Yeah,
of
it
presenting,
is.
just because I mean, bouncing off of whatever kids are going to come out with, you sort of never know. They're pretty unpredictable. So I really enjoyed doing that. And whilst I was over there, I mean, at the same time, before I went away, I was sort of posting a lot of stuff onto YouTube, sort of presenting wise and doing a lot of street interviews and just sort of using YouTube as a bit of like a portfolio rather than trying to be like a YouTuber necessarily. Thought it's just a great way to get your stuff out there. So when I was working abroad, a guy got in contact with me and sort of asked me to come in for a demo. And he said he worked for Heart in one of their regions. So it was Heart Kent at the time. He was like, come down and let's do
Yeah.
a Heart demo. So yeah, the sort of like the radio side of it, it was always one thing when I knew I wanted to get into presenting. I was always trying to figure out what's the best way to get into radio, sort of local radio. Unfortunately, I didn't go to uni, so I couldn't sort of step in and do like student radio. So I missed out on that. But I was looking at getting into local radio, but
Yeah.
just sort of at that same time, this guy from Heart comes around and he's like, come in and do a demo. And it sort of just went from there, really. Was working with them for about maybe 6 months, doing demos back and forth and just sort of getting practice sort of as if I was on air. And then they slowly pushed me over to Capital, as they're all under the same brand. They're all part of this
Yeah.
company, Global. And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
and then boom, you're in capital. You know what? I can relate to you so much now is because I've actually been through the same thing you've been. I studied acting as well in university, and I can relate to the fact that a lot of actors, when they're training, they kind of are training to be a presenter at the same time, because actors, they're very colorful characters, they're very, animated. So once if you're training to be an actor, I mean, if you decide, right, okay, I want to be a presenter now, you have that skill set to be in that industry. And I think that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the time, because obviously presenting wise, you're doing like a lot of rehearsals, you're reading scripts. So it does go hand in hand, especially if you're reading a script and you're doing it again and again and again. When it actually comes to either it's like a live broadcast or it's live to an audience, you got to still make it sound like it's the first time you're saying it. You got to make it sound natural. So I definitely think like acting comes into that. You can't just sound like a robot reading it for the 20th time.
Absolutely. I mean, did you create your own? Tell me, I'm interested. You talked about your YouTube account. What kind of things were you posting on there? Did you come up with your own projects in somewhat of a way? Making projects that showcased your talent off?
Yeah, sort of. It was a lot of street interviews. I really enjoyed doing those. And again, I thought it was a great way of just sort of getting a bit of experience talking to different people. I mean, just going up to random people doing like vox pops on the street. You sort of, again, you never know who you're going to bump into.
How's your day?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't want to get involved, and there's a lot of people that just really surprise you. Some of the stuff they come out with is like, okay, that's made the whole video now. It's great. And then just alongside that, just enjoyed sort of doing the sort of sketches, those types of videos as well, and sort of like trying to merge the two as well. So again, I've sort of like stepped away from YouTube a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't really sort of focus much time onto it, but I definitely
it's a good way to get yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely.
About that. And I love Vox Pops. And I think the most important thing as a presenter is that once you want to go and talk to someone, you need that confidence. You need that sort of that mindset. You need to go over, right, I'm going to talk to this person. I've got the questions. I'm confident. What's the worst thing that can happen? They'll reject me. Fine, I'll go and find a different person. But it's all about having that confidence as a presenter. If you're going on stage knowing that, you know what, I can do this, then you're guaranteed to make a good impression.
Yeah, of course. And then if you do get rejected, it always looks good in the video. It's always fun.
It's always good talking about those rejection stories.
Yeah, I know. As much as it hurts at the time.
All 25 of them.
Yeah, I know. There's one that matters.
There's one that matters. And I mean, is it a good feeling when you have your break? Because a lot of people that talk to me, and I've been trying to get into my break for years now, and I'm happy to keep working towards my goals. What's the feeling like when you get that opportunity? Do you feel... What is the feelings that are going through your mind when you know, okay, this is my way in now. This is what I wanted to do. I've got my chance now. And do you just grab it like the heart? You grab it by the heart and take it, and you feel you know where you're going with it, or you just like to go with the flow and be grateful for any opportunities that come your way?
It is definitely the second one. I think just sort of going with the flow of it. And again, it's sort of because in my sort of route in and this type of stuff, it didn't really feel like just one break, if you know what I mean. You still sort of feel like you're still waiting for it. Do you know what I mean? And it was just because it's quite a slow process a lot of the time. Again, like we were saying earlier on, stop doing acting. You sort of go for one option, and it's either a yes or a no. And I feel like as soon as you get that one yes, it's like, here we go, I've done it. But I guess with presenting, it's a lot more meeting people and having those sort of relationships, and slowly along the line, people keeping you in mind for things. And definitely the radio thing. All in all, it was probably about a year's worth of sort of doing demos and, like I said, meetings and things like that. So it's always sort of like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We're just sort of going to go with it and see where it ends up. And it's always really slow. And again, my first couple of shows on Capital, they were like the overnight ones, so like 1 till 4 in the morning in one of the regions. And then sort of did that on like what they call the network. So that's sort of throughout the whole of the UK. And it's just sort of like that slow moving sort of, taking each next step, really.
And you never know who's out there that will spot your talent at the end of the day. Somebody could see what you're doing. It's so fascinating when you're posting stuff on these platforms. You never know who's watching it. You never know who's looking and say, wow, this guy's got a real good talent. We could use this guy in somewhat of a way. But as you mentioned, breaks, they are quite hard. It's like playing a game of Super Mario and you're trying to get through all the obstacles and you're getting blocked every time by those
Yeah.
nasty eating plants. And obviously you got to find a new route, which is great. And I do love a game of Super Mario, I got to be honest.
Yeah, it was great.
So now, I mean, what's the biggest memory you've had so far from working on Capital? What's the thing you most enjoy from working on Capital? You're hearing all those different songs, but what is the big highlights for you?
I think the highlights so far, I mean, I haven't done a load of sort of celebrity interviews yet,
Yet, getting there now.
yeah, but the one I did do recently was with Niall Horan and Anne Marie, and it was great. I mean, they were a lot of fun. I think those two together, I mean, they sort of, I mean, they are friends, aren't they? So they're sort of just great to chat to. They had like
Yeah.
good energy together. And I think that was a real moment. I always remember I remember watching like, you know, Niall Horan on the X Factor with 1D and all this stuff. And I remember at the time, all those years ago. And then it was like just sort of sat in the same studio, just having a chat with him. I was like, this is, how's this happened then? It was a bit, yeah, a bit sort of surreal, one of those moments. But yeah, definitely. I think, like I'm saying as well, like the events, always good fun. The balls. I did like a thing for Love Island as well. They were sort of partnered up
Oh
with
no, you didn't. You didn't.
yeah. Are
Oh
you a
no.
fan? You a Love Island fan or not?
Oh no, no, no. We'll pass that. But I mean,
Oh, we'll sort that one then.
I'm interested to know now. What's it like working in the media during COVID? Was COVID a big challenge? Because I've heard some stories of how presenters have had to work from home. Was that the case with you? And did you find that difficult?
I was very lucky, actually. I know there's a lot of radio stations that they were working from home. They gave all the presenters a mic, and yeah, that's what they did for months and months. And I think a lot of stations as well, they've only just got back into their studios now. But at Capital, I sort of as a real positive, I loved the fact that we could still go in and we didn't work from home once. They sort of did try it out, and they gave us mics and things like that just in case. But no, we just carried on going in, and obviously there was absolutely nobody in the building really, other than presenters and a couple of producers. And it was just a sort of like, it was a great time to be on radio as well, just because it felt really odd, like we're all in the same boat here, and just you sort of, like my shows on the weekend, everyone's doing something different, and you know, people are going on days out, some people are working, some people are just at home hungover or whatever. But sort of throughout the deep part of COVID, it's like, right, here we are. We're all in the same boat. Let's get through this together then. And sort of looking back on it, might sound a little bit weird and sort of quite lucky about it, but I sort of enjoyed it really. Enjoyed being on air anyway.
Knowing that you're in a closed room and out there is a killing virus, causing
Yeah.
havoc.
I know.
It's scary.
It is, and it was weird time coming in as well, because I would sort of drive in at that time as well, and sort of just pulled up sort of in London, and got stopped by the police, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to work. I'm going to work. I'm not just here for a day out."
Get home.
Yeah.
So let's talk about TikTok now. So I've noticed a lot of you find a lot of different people on TikTok. A lot of different people. You'll find influencers that have just released a video and they've made a name for themselves. But I've noticed a lot more radio presenters on there. And I love the fact that they can record the TikTok at the same time they go in live. I think that's brilliant. So I mean, what drew you to the app? What did you find interesting about it?
I'm sure you've heard this a lot from like the guests that you've had on your podcast as well, but it's good old lockdown. That's sort of like one of the main reasons why I got into the app, really. Yeah, I didn't really sort of obviously know that much about the app. It was sort of at the time where everybody was just sort of a bit like, what is this TikTok app that everyone's talking about? What is this type of thing? And I spoke to a couple of people at work as well, like part of the digital team, and they were like, you need to get on it, because I was posting a lot of, I guess, short form little sketch videos to my Instagram and to Twitter at the time. And again, they're probably getting like 40 likes. It wasn't, but I just enjoyed doing it and just sort of posted them on there.
That's
And
the
then
start.
it was, and then weirdly, so I just literally took those exact videos that I had posted for Instagram and Twitter, and I just uploaded those to TikTok, and that just seemed to be the right platform for them. And they sort of did quite well on TikTok. And then just sort of off the back of that, started making sort of original content, I guess, for TikTok, and seemed to go all right. Yeah.
As well, I mean, when you're at home, I mean, ideas do come to you when you're creating skits. Ideas do come to you eventually. But you must have a lot of flow of ideas coming in when you're in the studio. You might get a lot of good ideas. Wow, I can do this with the mic, so I can do this. Oh, I'll show people how to make some music. You must get a lot of real good ideas on creating content for TikTok when you're in the studio.
Yeah, definitely. I always find like the random places are the best place to come up with TikTok ideas or just ideas in general. If I ever sit down and just think, right, let's come up with an idea, if that's like a TikTok or anything, I just find it impossible. So as soon as you're doing something, like you say, if I'm on the radio and somebody brings up a conversation or just a news story, it's always like, yeah, there could be a video in there. So I think that the shower or at the gym as well, it's always a good place to come up with ideas.
The most random one I've heard is a garden center when somebody was like dressing up a gnome for Halloween. It was really entertaining, actually. I've come up with, you just think, wow, this app.
Maybe I need to try that out.
Yeah, I mean, it would be quite worth it, but maybe next Halloween. I think they've run out of gnome stock now, anyway. So I mean, TikTok, everybody's hooked on it now. Everybody's hooked on it. Do you think that? I mean, we talked earlier. I want to relate back to when we talked about the breaking into the industry. It's a very tough industry to break into. Everybody knows that. You might have a talent, but you've got to showcase it, as we all know as presenters that we do. But do you think TikTok is that? It's a new way to showcase yourself.
Yeah, it's just the best way of sort of putting stuff out there. I always feel like on TikTok, if it's a talent or it's a good video or if it's just interesting to watch, I just think it's going to do well. I think that is the nice thing about the TikTok algorithm. Whereas on YouTube, these days, I think it's very hard to get stuff seen on YouTube. You've got to be, one of these YouTubers that dedicate 3 to 5 days a week uploading videos and
Noella.
Years at the craft and all this stuff. But TikTok, it just seems to be like you could have 2 followers and that one video, if it's impressive, it would do well. And I think that's just a great way of sort of putting your stuff out there and just getting spotted from it.
One of the guests I've had on, he's quite well known actually on the TikTok scene, is the pool guy. I had the pool guy on, and I mean, it just blows my mind how he just takes videos of his pool. Now, it's not just taking videos of the pool that are interesting. It's how he does it, how he cleans the pool. And now he's getting invited over to Tiny Temper's house. It's nuts, isn't it?
It is incredible.
And all this because of the app. But it was his job too. But the app give him that exposure. It's brilliant stuff like that, isn't it?
Definitely. I know. I was loving the fact that you had interviewed him because I haven't seen anything about him other than those videos. So scrolling through yours, I was like, oh, it's the pool guy. Here he is.
You know more about him, he's
yeah.
You learn
he
so
must
much.
have got so much work. Yeah, definitely. He must have got so much work off the back of that, and I think that's the best way of doing it, isn't it? It's sort of like this is what you do anyway, and weirdly, those videos, like the satisfying pool cleaning videos, they just go down so well on TikTok, and it's the most random thing, which I'm sure he would never have thought. Like, a couple of years, that's how I want to, propel 100%. My career.
I mean, who else have you checked out on TikTok now? Who else has caught your eye? You think, I like their content; they're pretty good.
Who have I got? I mean, I made a couple of mates through TikTok as well, which is always quite nice.
That's another great thing about the app.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Cole Anderson.
I really, he's one I've wanted to talk to a lot of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great entertainer, I think.
He really is. He started off doing like the sort of Ricky Gervais lip sync videos, and I remember seeing him at that time and sort of talking to him like then, and sort of seeing his sort of take on everything. And then as soon as he got into his own sort of comedy skits and content that way, obviously propelled himself. And I'm sure if you're going to talk to him, he can tell you more about it. But he was cast in Afterlife 3, so it's your career again just through the power of TikTok. These people's career is just sort of blowing up.
He even got a reply. I think one of the skits he did was of The Rock. I think you must know this. And The Rock actually replied to him. I'm thinking, you got a tweet from one of Hollywood's biggest paid actors, The Rock. That's crazy. So I bet he is absolutely rocking about that.
Yeah. I was going to say, it just goes to show how big TikTok is, because I was working on a project recently and there's a guy with 10 million followers. And before we worked on the project together, didn't even know who he was. Which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It's just sort of like, that's how big the app is. Like if you knew of anybody else that had like a following of 10 million on either Instagram or YouTube, surely you'd know who they are. But I mean, videos on TikTok get like 5 million views and it's not a big deal or anything. So it's
it's
just
crazy.
such an insane app.
What's your most memorable skit that you've made, mate? What if there's one skit that you've made that really, you know, stands out to you? You can look back at a Christmas party, think, all right, out of all the years of content I'd make, yeah, that's the one that really stands out. What would you say?
I think it's definitely the one that I did in Fuerteventura. So it's the first. It became a bit of a series now, but it's sort of like the property style video. So I was on holiday with a good mate, and we were in Fuerteventura. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but there's a lot of buildings that are just derelict. They're all sort of, they basically gave up building them years ago, and they're just sort of concrete structures now. So they look great. So we were driving past a couple of them. And I was like, I just want to get like a quick video for my Instagram. You know, like how these property presenters are always, you know, bigging up these houses. I was like, let me just do that with one of these awful looking concrete structures. So we sort of just got out. I had my camera with me at the time because I was just sort of like planning on like filming a couple of little videos while we were on this holiday. And we started filming this video, and he loves these type of programs as well. And he's a bit of a writer. So he sort of loves like this whole like content creating sort of world as well. So we were like, let's just make it a longer video. And we just sort of spent the next 24 hours really just filming in different locations and putting this video together and posted it. And we were like, that was a lot of fun. And then like 6 months later, put it on TikTok, and it just sort of seemed to do really well on there. And
now you've literally got your own grand designs. You can exactly. One of those grand designs right now. I mean, ring up the grand designs boss, whoever he is, and say, I've got an idea. This place. Take me there, Grand Designs. Niall's Designs. They're sorted.
This is the thing. I'm sort of waiting for a place in the sun to get hold of me and present one of their shows. But then I thought that, and then I was like, actually, I'm sort of just taking the piss out of it, though, aren't I? So I don't think they will call me up.
It's been great chatting to you, Niall. I've really enjoyed it. It's been absolutely great. Last question I've got for you. Is there a piece of advice you can give to somebody in your profession? What advice would you give someone who's desperately trying to break into the industry?
What would the advice be? I think
call up a place in the sun. That's the advice.
Exactly. You know what? It is just sort of a given, and I think you do hear it a million times, but it's just stick with what you enjoy doing and just keep pursuing that. Because I think a lot of the time, especially now, I think a lot of people try and make certain videos because they see other people doing it and it goes well for them. But chances are, like, you keep doing what you're doing, and like at some point it's all gonna work out, and there's gonna be a niche for it, or you're gonna like sort of master your craft in what that is. So I think just stick with what you enjoy.
Yeah, and as well, finally, it's one thing that's really interested me is the fact you can never be too old to be a presenter.
Definitely.
Can never be too old to be a presenter.
Oh my gosh, no. And I always think with presenting, I think it's sort of the opposite in a way. You're just going to get better with age. You're going to get more experience. You're going to get life experience as well. You're going to do whatever you do. You're going to work on these little projects, and it's all just going to help out. And yeah, definitely, I think. Yeah.
And then you'll end up working on Question Time.
Exactly.
That's the end game. That's literally
the career path.